What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and today we have some very interesting news. Marvel and DC could have been completely different. We almost lived in a world where Marvel would have been nothing like it is today. The MCU might not have existed, but DC might have actually had an amazing universe. This is all because of one person, Kevin Feige. Right now, he is Marvel Studios' president and is widely responsible for the creation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all of the movies that we know and love today that make up the MCU. However, we have learned that this almost didn't happen, because at one point in time, Kevin Feige was in serious talks with DC to leave Marvel Studios and go over to Warner Brothers. And what's interesting is that Warner Brothers to this day still wants a Kevin Feige, and now especially more than ever. But if Kevin Feige would have left Marvel back in the day, which we're about to talk about, things in each universe probably would have been insanely different, and DC probably would have been the better franchise. Would the MCU still have existed? Well, probably, but Kevin Feige really is the mastermind behind everything. So the MCU probably would have existed, but it might have been caused by Kevin Feige creating a DCEU, a true DCEU, over at Warner Brothers. And it might have been Marvel trying to copy what DC was doing. Because keep in mind, Kevin Feige has worked for Marvel Studios since way before the MCU was even a thing. Kevin Feige started working on Marvel films in the 90s as an assistant, and then he got hired as a producer for the first time by Marvel in 2000. He worked on those classic original Marvel films like X-Men, Spider-Man, The Punisher, Fantastic Four, Daredevil, and the Hulk films. And then of course he would go on to create the MCU. However, it looks like at one point in time, he was actually kind of dissatisfied with Marvel and almost left to Warner Brothers. According to a recent article by Puck, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige considered moving to DC several years back amid frustrations with the Marvel management at the time. And that's pretty scary to hear. The MCU owes a lot to Kevin Feige. Without him, we probably wouldn't have any of these films that we have today. And if we did, they probably wouldn't be as good. The stories wouldn't be as good, the directors, and probably the casting choices as well for the actors. But luckily for us Marvel fans, this didn't happen anytime recently. This actually happened in 2010. Now, this is after Iron Man and the Hulk, and after the creation of the MCU. So technically the MCU would have already existed, but what if Kevin Feige actually left? I definitely don't think the MCU would have been anywhere near the same, but the DCEU wouldn't be nearly the same as well. It would probably be a lot more successful than it is now, and probably would have been more successful than Marvel Studios at the time. Now, Kevin Feige seemingly got what he wanted from Marvel Studios because, according to this report by Puck, the reason that he was so frustrated was because the old CEO and chairman for Marvel Entertainment, Ike Perlmutter, had apparent opposition to diversity in the MCU. And over the years, we definitely have had a lot of diversity in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is thanks to Kevin Feige. So it looks like he got what he wanted. Now, it says that he was clearly frustrated with Marvel at the time, which is why he was talking to DC, but this actually could have been a really great thing back then because it most likely led to Kevin Feige's promotion. This would ultimately lead to Kevin Feige being in charge of Marvel Studios. And I'm talking full control, not just a lot of control, but full control. Kevin Feige having to report to nobody, but everybody working for him, which ultimately led to the success of the MCU. And it looks like Warner Brothers and DC are still looking for a Kevin Feige type. Warner Brothers has recently merged with other companies and is now called Warner Bros. Discovery, and they have a new CEO, David Zaslav. And according to the article by Puck, he wants to become Disney. And I find his plan very interesting. According to this article, they are going to be splitting Warner Bros. Into separate silos. They'll have different sections. One is going to be live action films from Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema, another is family animation, and another is DC superhero projects. And according to this article, David Zaslav is looking for a Kevin Feige figure to come in and help DC. Now, this could be either a really good or a really bad thing. On the surface, you could say that it's pretty good. Warner Brothers giving DC kind of their own department. That way, it's the people in that department's job to solely focus on these superhero projects, making the movies and the shows better, and hopefully working on a extended universe that actually works and sticks to itself. However, if you get somebody to come in and be in charge of this department, they have to be really good, and they do kind of have to be Kevin Feige caliber, which is extremely hard to come by. one doesn't simply just get a Kevin Feige to come in and direct their universe. Yes, Lord of the Rings pun intended. So again, this could be really good news, or it might actually flop like a lot of the DC stuff has. However, they do have a lot of really exciting stuff coming up in the future, and if they do get the right team, I believe that the DC universe could be a great universe. Fortunately for us right now, Kevin Feige is the president of Marvel Studios, and it looks like everything that he's wanted to make happen is happening. And the MCU is extremely successful, especially with the addition of the Marvel Disney Plus shows, and they're cranking those bad boys out, like 4 to 5 a year. And that's on top of the 3 to 4 movies they'll be producing every year as well. So right now, it's all good for us Marvel fans. It looks like Kevin Feige isn't going anywhere, but he almost did, and the MCU could have been completely different. We might have all been DC fans, and this channel might have focused a lot more on DC than it did Marvel. But for right now, we're good. And hopefully DC actually does get a good person to come in and get everything rolling for them. But in the meantime, let me know what you think each universe would have been like if Kevin Feige would have left Marvel and went to DC. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.